When Kobe Bryant scored 81 points in a spectacular performance against the Toronto Raptors in 2006, a game in which Kobe willed his underperforming Lakers team to a win, the NBA world was absolutely dumbfounded. We had seen some incredible Kobe Bryant performances in the past, and even Kobe aside, we had seen some phenomenal displays of mastery on offense, but nothing like this. The NBA hadn't seen a player score more than 70 points in a game since David Robinson scored 71 points in 1994, and prior to that, David Thompson in 1978 when he put up 73. To see a player in the modern day NBA, a post-shot clock era, an era with 3 seconds in the key being a rule, and the level of talent on defense being exceptionally better than it was in the 60s and 70s, to see a player put up 81 points almost seemed impossible. And while we haven't seen anyone reach 80 points since that day in January 2006, even getting close to that mark in the modern NBA was seen to be so far out of reach. And quite frankly, it was out of reach, as we never even saw anyone hit the 70s mark for over a decade when Devin Booker put up 70 in a loss in 2017. And as the years went on from there, you would see more and more amazing displays of offense. But over the past 2 seasons, this spike in scoring both individually from a player standpoint and teams as a whole has taken on new meanings. In a league that has already seen such a massive uptick in overall three-point shooting, pace, scoring, this season in particular, offense has been taken to a new level. And while we all can't get enough of it, as fans we eat it up on a nightly basis to see a team go off for 140 points like it's nothing, the question is this good for the league? And what happened to defense in the modern NBA? As always, if you're new to the channel and you like this type of content, it would mean a great deal to me if you subscribed, and in return I'll be providing more NBA content like this. So this statistic is mind-boggling. Prior to the 2022-23 NBA season, only 6 players in NBA history had ever recorded more than 70 points in an NBA game. And since Kobe Bryant's 81-point game, only 1 player had reached 70 in Devin Booker, like I just mentioned. Just 2 seasons ago, we had only seen 1 70-point game in over 15 years. Fast forward to today, and just 2 seasons later, we now have 10 players who hit the 70-point club. And in just the last 2 weeks, we have seen 70-point performances from Luka Doncic when he went off for 73 points, 4th most scored in a game in NBA history, and Joel Embiid putting up 70 in just 37 minutes of play in a win. This doesn't even include, in that 2-week time span, both Devin Booker and Karl-Anthony Towns each having 62-point outings. So in an over 75-year history of the NBA's existence, we've seen 10 players score 70 or more points, with 4 of them being added in just the last 2 seasons. Safe to say we've entered a new era of basketball, more than just the three-point era where we've seen an exceptional increase in the number of threes and teams taking threes, but an offensive revolution where players are finding all kinds of ways to score at all 3 levels and getting buckets at will. How much has offense increased in the NBA over the years? Well, let's take a look at this as an example. Going back 10 years ago, in the 2013-14 season, the LA Clippers led the NBA in points per game at 107.9 points, with an offensive rating of 112.1. They were the best offensive team in the league, and by a pretty wide margin. This season, the team with the lowest output in terms of points per game is the Memphis Grizzlies at 107.8 points per game, just a 1/10 of a point lower than the league's leading LA Clippers on offense just a decade ago. And at their league-leading 112 offensive rating from the Clippers in 2014 would be good enough for 25th in the NBA this season. What was once enough to be the best offensive team in the league just 10 years ago would now be in the bottom 5 on offense. Hell, even just 5 seasons ago, in the 2018-19 season, a team like the Golden State Warriors, who revolutionized the game of basketball and set a new standard for high pace and space offense, would set new records every season with the best offensive rating in NBA history just 5 years ago. Their incredible offensive rating of 115.9 would now be in the middle of the pack of the league, the average offensive rating in today's NBA, sitting 15th with said rating. But really, nothing can illustrate just how much offense has taken off in the NBA in just the last 2 seasons, or really we should say the last season and a half, because just 2 seasons ago in the league, the Minnesota Timberwolves finished this season putting up the most points per game at 115.9 with an offensive rating of 114.3. The league leader in offensive rating was the Utah Jazz at 116.7. All of this just 2 seasons ago. And the points per game and offensive rating numbers at that mark, believe it or not, would now be slightly below average this season. The Philadelphia 76ers so far this season have exceeded last season's all-time record for the highest offensive rating in NBA history, which was set by the Sacramento Kings. at 119.4, who are one of the most impressive offensive teams we've seen in league history with their incredible ability to spread the floor, knock down threes at a high rate, get to the rim at will, and do it with such pace that made it near impossible to defend. A rating we had never seen in league history, setting a new standard for how offenses should be run. And the 76ers have already surpassed the previous record set for offensive rating, currently at 120.2. Oh, and the Sixers are only 6th in offensive rating so far this season. 6 teams have offensive ratings above 120, an unprecedented feat, making what the Kings did last season just another day in the park. The Indiana Pacers, who currently have an offensive rating of 121.6, is now the highest rating from a team in NBA history, and they're also averaging more points per game than we've ever seen at a ridiculous 125 points per game, up from the Kings' highest points per game last season at 120.4, and the season before that, 115.9. Nearly a 10 point per game increase in offensive output in just 2 seasons. We're all witnessing history in a new era of offensive excellence and exceptional talent. But while we all love scoring, and it's what makes the game so exciting to watch for us fans, has the game's focus on offense gone too far to where teams are simply just seeing who can win games in a shootout with little to no effort on the other end of the floor? Have we created a system in which overall diversity of offense has decreased and taken away teams' abilities to play effective defense with the way the games are officiated, where officials more often than not give the advantage to the offensive player, and foul baiting has become so commonplace that teams are almost disincentivized to play hard-nosed defense and expelling so much energy and effort on that side of the ball just to get hit with a personal foul. Our NBA players, as well as NBA prospects, coming into the league naturally being conditioned not to put much effort on defense because teams are going to get theirs on offense no matter what, and you might as well just focus your effort and energy on offense. The worst defensive team in the league 10 years ago, in the Milwaukee Bucks, would be considered a top 5 defensive team in the league by today's standards. In today's NBA, you can be one of the worst defenders in the league, terrible on ball or off ball, missing defensive assignments, terrible at navigating screens, but if you can be an above average player on offense, you have a place in the rotation. As Jabari Parker famously once said, they don't pay players to play defense, they pay people to score the ball. We all laugh and talk about how incredibly ignorant that quote is and how Jabari's poor defensive effort, compounded by all the injuries, eventually put himself out of the league, but this statement isn't that far off today, where it becomes apparent players are solely focusing on their offensive game, not because they can't be good defenders or at least try to improve on that side of the ball, but more so because it's what the league dictates nowadays. You have to be strong on offense to make it in this league. Now, that isn't to say that there aren't still incredible defenders in the NBA or that there aren't players who actually give a damn to play hard on defense. There certainly are those types of players. And this also isn't to say that defense has completely gone by the wayside so bad to the point where it's like you're watching an NBA All-Star game. Players still want to try and win the game. And if you have to play hard on both sides to win, then you're going to do it. And let's also not ignore the fact that the talent pool in the NBA has gotten significantly better over the years, that it makes it incredibly difficult to defend some players who are just so elite at scoring the ball, especially when you have multiple players on the roster who are exceptional in putting the ball in the hoop. But if this trend continues and we keep seeing 5-point increases on offense year over year, you do have to wonder if we'll get to a place where the integrity and the competitiveness of the game will be compromised. Now, for me personally, I love the high offensive output we've seen in the NBA in recent years and love how beautifully offenses are orchestrated with how quickly and efficient teams operate. And I don't believe we've reached a point in the NBA where the lack of defense has gotten to a place where the game has become boring to watch by any means. But one thing I do miss is the level of effort, focus, and energy on both ends of the floor. Competition being played at the highest level with attention to detail in every aspect of the game. We simply don't see that anymore. It's a rarity nowadays to see players going all out for loose balls, getting in the lane to draw charges, and I don't blame players for that. Well, some of them anyway. They're simply adapting and adjusting their games to the way the league is trending. But my hope is that it doesn't get to a point where it gets out of control and we see a league in which there is such poor effort defensively that the game no longer becomes exciting to watch when exceptionalism on offense is no longer as impressive when teams aren't playing defense. What made a game like Kobe Bryant's 81-point performance so impressive was the fact that he had to do it with strong defensive effort from his opponent. If teams aren't going to play defense, it won't make these 70-plus point performances that we've seen recently all that exciting. Just my thoughts on the matter though. I would be curious to know what your guys' thoughts are on the current state of defense in the league. Let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.